Hello, USM family. Welcome to the February edition of the JEDI News video version. So I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, why are we switching from the newsletter format? Many of you have told me how much you've enjoyed it and how it's also helped your insomnia. And so I won't say it's gone forever, but this is just another opportunity for us to help engage the community in the conversation about JEDI. I've had some conversations, if I'm being really transparent, with many of our families. And with COVID happening this year, it's quite difficult to really get a feel for what's happening in the community. And so here's our attempt, to pull back the curtain so that you can not only physically see what's happening in the hallways and the classrooms, but also a unique opportunity to hear directly from our faculty and staff who have been working on their JEDI journeys since the year started and before.
So JEDI, when I was thinking about this, JEDI to me means really just doing the right thing.
Serving your country.
Being the best teacher you can be to all students.
So I've got kids who served in the military, I've got kids who will be downtown and serving their country and walking in protests. Walking in that question, what do we do next?
It's doing the right thing as an educator here in my classroom, as a colleague with my faculty members, as a parent, and as a spouse, as a community member, as a person. It's doing the right thing. It's the justice, equity, diversity and inclusion. It's what we should be doing as a community, and it only strengthens the community.
We had this Alumni Voices call back in June 18th of 2020. If I could take everyone, if I can ask every one of them to come back and experience a day here on our campus to see what we're doing today even, I think they would be wowed. And I also think too, they'll be able to help us go forward too, even more so. I think we learned a lot of that too in that phone call. I think for this person, I had to listen, and I still need to listen. So, and I think that hearing from them, and hearing their pain, their experience, and then as we move from that to their strength, and then to now where we are at our hope, that was impactful to me. My staff knows how impactful that was to me. It was pretty emotional the next morning.
We often use the language of teaching the whole child. And I think that that's really good and important. It's a big part of who we are and what we can do uniquely as an independent school. But I think also what stands out to me about that within the context of the JEDI initiative is that, which whole child?
Is February, so it is Black History Month, but in reality, that hasn't really affected our classroom that much because we're talking about Black history almost every day.
I start the year with the Declaration of Independence, and so I focus it on every year, but this year more than ever, because I got a banner, another one in my room, and my kids know this. It says "Close the Gap," because we have this Declaration of Independence. It says we're all equal, right, and we all have freedoms. We all have those unalienable rights, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But I showed this video at the start of the year with Morgan Freeman, who says that the glory of that document is to close the gap between the ideals of the Declaration of Independence and, as he says, the painful realities, sometimes painful realities of our society. And so, to me, that focuses our curriculum in 8th grade American history or American story on JEDI.
Well, what it looks like in the U.S. history curriculum is a purposeful inclusion of multiple perspectives throughout the entire year. So making sure that when we address early American history, we're going beyond that frequently mythologized history of kind of great man history and great event history, and acknowledging that it took many different forces and many different groups to get where we are today. So we include, women's history from the very beginning, African American history from the very beginning, Native American history from the very beginning, if you're going to have a solid understanding of how we got where we are today.
Black history is American history. Women's history is American history. LGBTQ history is American history, the way that immigration history is American history. They all come together to bring this big story.
I think my students are really seeing what is the American experience, and the American experience is not necessarily this narrative that they've been told or bought into. The American experience is a history of these groups that have been oppressed and have risen above. And the amount of entering in they can do to see, oh my goodness, that actually is shaping. That's actually shaped our country and who we are, and that is the American experience, is huge.
Yeah.
And I know that was a huge takeaway I had from listening to 1619, was the end, her being like, the American experience is this idea of Black people rising above and being, being able to claim what is true from the early documents for themselves.
With a few friends within the club, I helped come up with the idea to do the Black Excellence panel. Basically, in this panel, we brought in different professionals in their various fields who are African American, who could truly exemplify what we as African Americans represent.
But moving beyond that to say, how do we incorporate Black joy into our curriculum, and how do we focus on resistance and rising above and celebrating cultural contributions and all of these things that are so beautiful about Black history that can get pushed aside or not emphasized because we focus on the history of oppression, which is important to do, but we need more than that.
This idea actually began last year when we were talking about trying to brainstorm ideas for Black Student Union and with coming up with Black History Month. Normally there would be a Kahoot or some sort of assembly that we do, and this time we said, why don't we try something a little bit different? And we also tend to talk more about some of the horrible things that happen to the African American community. And we wanted to take a moment to focus on the positive and the excellence that exudes from our community.
Another one of my catch lines, and kids know this one too, is American history rules. All right? I love studying American history. I love teaching American history. I love learning about American history because it tells us so much about ourselves. But what we have to realize is that America's history is also America's story. And America's story has a whole lot of chapters and a whole lot of authors and a whole lot of characters and a whole lot of stories within it that make up this big mosaic of what it really means to be America. And it's not just what you have superficially on the textbook.
Yeah, and I think that's a connection for kids today that makes it relevant, because they're all very much aware that this is a continuing process. They know that they don't see a world that is perfect. So if they can kind of look to history and say this is an ongoing campaign rather than it used to be great when, right? Like, there's more buy-in, I think, to say I'm part of a bigger movement and I want to figure out where I fit into this.
You know, we have done a pretty good job with endowments in support of students of minority to low-income, first generation. We have annual gifts that support that, but there's probably more we need to be doing, and we're uncovering that too. So we're conscious of it.
One person can't do it by themselves. It really takes a team, it takes a group of people, it takes a community to really base this work and get it moving and actually get some progression with it. So understanding that this is a long-term goal and that it'll take time to get with, but it also recognize that there are changes happening now too, and we need as many people on board to really get those happening.
Thank you for watching this video version edition of the JEDI News for February. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've learned about where we think we are, where we're going, and just the process that we're taking. We really appreciate your love, your dedication, your encouragement, and support as we embark on this JEDI journey, and we look forward to partnering with you and hearing your feedback as we continue to make improvements in this field. So thank you, and until next time, please be safe, and we'll see you on our next edition.